In cities built skyward, where neon lights bleed into the fog, and silence hums inside concrete towers, there are places the living were never meant to reach. Welcome to Ghosts of Asia, a descent into the shadows beneath the surface of modern life. Here, we do not chase superstition. We document what cannot be explained. We whisper what others refuse to say. Tonight's tale begins with a clip, a viral video. Just another late-night scroll until a girl in a hospital gown appears in a mirror behind someone who was completely alone. But what if the reflection isn't broken? What if it's showing you something you're not ready to see? Some buildings hide a floor that was sealed for a reason. And sometimes, the only thing more terrifying than going up is what follows you down. This is 14th floor footage. And before you keep watching, check your reflection. They didn't find the clip on the news. They didn't stumble across it in a horror subreddit. It was TikTok. Of course it was. The kind of video that shows up between cat memes and ASMR. 30 seconds of something weird, glitchy, barely believable. Just long enough to make you freeze. Just short enough to make you doubt what you saw. At Chulalongkorn University in Bangkok, students scrolled through it in lecture halls, in libraries, in cafes. It passed through group chats like a fever. A girl in a hospital gown, an elevator mirror, and a reflection that wasn't supposed to be there. The video began like thousands of others, a vertical shot, slightly shaky, showing a boy recording himself in the mirror inside an elevator. He's talking to the camera, joking around about how creepy it is to ride alone late at night. The floor number above him glows softly, 12. The lighting is sterile, typical elevator vibes. Then the floor changes, 13. Then a flicker, 14. And the boy suddenly freezes. He glances at the mirror. Behind him, a girl, pale, still, head slightly tilted. She's wearing a faded hospital gown, her skin waxy and gray-blue. But what made the video viral wasn't just her appearance, it was her mouth. It had been sewn shut with coarse, black thread. He whirls around, the camera jostles. No one is there. When he turns back to the mirror, the girl is gone. The video ends with a loud elevator ding. The screen goes black. No scream, no jump scare. Just quiet and that floor number, 14. In a country where most buildings skip that number, calling it 12A or jumping straight to 15, the comment sections erupted. Bro, Thai buildings don't even have a 14th floor. I live in that condo. We only go up to 13. She blinked, pause at 0017. That's not a prank. That's a binding spirit. Check the CCTV, man. There was no one else in that lift. Within days, a group of 5 university students were watching it on loop in their dorm room. Lights off, phone brightness low. There was Nam, a journalism student with a fascination for true crime. Ploy, her roommate, who preferred ghost stories she didn't believe in. Krit, who studied architecture and loved explaining the rational design flaws behind haunted buildings. May, soft-spoken and spiritual. And Benz, the loud one, who always cracked jokes to keep fear at bay. They must have played it 20 times, rewinding, zooming, frame by frame. The girl's eyes seemed to move. Her hair swayed just slightly, like water had soaked it. And the timestamp, always when the floor said 14. Maybe it's fake, Krit said, but if it's not, I want to know where this was filmed. He wasn't the only one. TikTok detectives across the country tried to geolocate the elevator panel. Some thought it was an old building in Saturn. Others swore it looked like a condo near Lod Prow. One commenter claimed it was an abandoned hospital turned into cheap student housing. Nam didn't wait for confirmation. She dug deeper. The night after they first saw the clip, she messaged the uploader. No reply. She scoured the account. Only that one video, nothing before or after. A burner account. She traced the audio. No original sound, just ambient elevator hum. She reversed image searched the mirror. No matches. And then she found something. A forum post. A throwaway Reddit account. The title, "Elevator keeps glitching at 14 in my building, but we don't have a 14." Posted 2 years ago. No responses, no upvotes. But the picture attached, it showed the same elevator mirror. Nam's hands trembled as she scrolled to the comments. There was only one. It had been posted exactly 30 minutes after the thread went live. The username was mean.mean.mean. It read, "Don't look at her mouth." That was all. The next day, Nam convinced the others to go with her. "Come on," she said, breathless. "It's just across the river. I think it's the Suksawat complex, the newer tower, not the old one. If it's fake, fine, but if not..." "Then what?" Ploy asked. Nam's eyes darkened. Maybe someone's trying to be seen. They took a cab there at dusk. The Suksawat tower stood tall and nondescript, painted a dull cream with rows of iron balconies stacked like cells. It didn't look haunted. It looked forgotten. The security guard barely looked up when they walked in. The lobby reeked of disinfectant. The elevator was old but functional, its chrome interior dotted with fingerprints, and above the mirror, that familiar red display. The numbers, the floor buttons, the exact layout. Nam's heart pounded. This is it. "All right," Ben said, pulling out his phone. "Let's do it TikTok style." He hit record. They crowded into the elevator. May stood nearest the mirror, arms crossed. The doors closed. They began to rise. And then, the light above flickered. The elevator stuttered, buzzed, clicked. The floor counter glitched. For half a second it showed 14. Then darkness. The lights snapped off. Complete silence. The elevator froze mid-climb. 5 friends. No movement. No sound. And in that black mirror, their faces slowly came into view, barely lit by the red number glowing above. Still. 14. Nam whispered, "Don't turn around." Benz crackled nervously. "This is gold!" Crit reached toward the control panel, fumbling for the emergency button. And then the elevator jolted violently downward. A sudden hum, a mechanical whine. The lights flickered back on. The counter skipped. 13, 12, 1. The doors opened. They were back in the lobby. Outside, May was pale. "We shouldn't have gone in. That was wrong." Nam reviewed the video. Her hands were shaking. The elevator had glitched, yes, but there was something else. At the moment the counter flashed 14, she saw herself glance toward the mirror. Then, she turned her head, slowly, looking at something behind her. But in the video, there was nothing there, just empty air, just them. The others didn't notice. Nam didn't mention it. That night, Nam didn't come back to the dorm. She didn't answer calls, didn't respond to texts. Her last message was a voice note, but it was corrupted. 14 seconds of silence followed by static, then a low whisper. No one could make out what it said, only that the timestamp showed she had sent it from inside that building. And in the background was the soft ding of an elevator, the final tone right before the doors opened. But the strange part was this. The final second of the recording contained a faint chime, not from the elevator, but from the mirror, as if glass had been tapped from the inside. That night, May woke screaming. She said she had dreamed of Nam, standing in the elevator, mouth sewn shut, eyes wet with blood. The number above her glowed. 14, 14, 14. They waited. 1 day, 2, 3. Nam didn't come back. Her bed remained untouched, her phone off. Her belongings were still in the dorm, shoes by the door, half a cup of iced milk tea on her desk, now gathering mold in the corner. Her journal was open to a list of places, all hospital buildings converted into condos. Circled in red, Suksawat Tower, Tower B. No police report had been filed, not yet. Her parents thought she was studying late, but her friends knew something was wrong. On the 4th night, Benz received a message. It came from Nam's phone, but it wasn't a text. It was a video. The clip lasted 11 seconds. It showed Nam, alone in the elevator, same mirror. The camera faced her, a blurry selfie view, her eyes wide, terrified. The floor number above her read 14. It glitched, it froze. Nam's mouth moved, but no sound came out. Not a single word. Behind her, the elevator doors remained shut. She tried the buttons, slammed her fist against them. Then, she turned slowly to the mirror and stared. Not at herself, but past herself. The camera jolted, the image pixelated, then black. Benz dropped his phone. It cracked. Ploy screamed. May began praying under her breath. Crit just sat down, trembling. "I told you," May snapped. "I told you we never should have gone." But Benz wasn't listening. He was already trying to retrieve the corrupted video. He replayed it again and again, until he paused it right at the moment Nam stared into the mirror. He zoomed in. The pixels danced and twisted. Behind Nam's reflection was a second figure. The girl in the hospital gown, thread sewn across her lips, tilted head. And in the moment before the video cut out, her eyes moved. She looked at Nam, and then at the viewer. It was Crit who broke the silence. "I need to see it again." "No," Ploy snapped. "Absolutely not." "I saw something in the corner, a door. There was a 14th floor. I saw it open behind her, just for a second. Didn't you?" "I saw Nam trapped in an elevator that doesn't exist," May whispered. Crit stood. What if it's still open? What if she's still there? That night, against better judgment, 3 of them returned to Suksawat Tower. May refused. She said, "If you go, don't bring anything back." "What does that mean?" Ploy asked. May just looked at her, her voice small. "It means, don't look into the mirror." The streets were nearly empty by midnight. A low fog curled around the feet of passing motorbikes. The tower loomed above them, silent and lightless except for the red glow of the lobby. The elevator stood waiting, as if it had known they were coming. Crit pressed the call button. It dinged once. The doors opened with a soft shudder. He stepped in first, then Benz. Ploy hesitated, then followed. Inside, it smelled faintly of antiseptic and something older, something like mildew or dried blood. The mirror reflected them with unnatural clarity. There were no handprints on it this time, No smudges, only their faces, and the number display above. Crit reached forward and pressed 13. The elevator jolted, began to climb. They didn't speak. 12, 13, and then the hum changed. The light inside flickered. The number above glitched, once, then twice, and suddenly the panel showed 14. The elevator didn't stop, but it didn't keep moving either. It shifted. The walls seemed to breathe ever so slightly. The floor vibrated beneath their feet. The lights dimmed, casting long shadows along the mirror. Then, ding, the doors opened. It wasn't a hallway. Not exactly. It was a narrow corridor, dimly lit by a single swinging fluorescent light. The walls were a sickly green, stained with moisture. The tiles were cracked, mismatched. Wheelchair scuff marks lined the sides. In the center of the hallway was a rusted stretcher, its cushion torn, its frame dented. Something dark was smeared across the floor beneath it, a line dragged from the elevator to the far wall, where a sealed steel door sat bolted shut. The room beyond the door pulsed with low flickering light. Benz took a step out. "Wait," Ploy whispered. He turned. "I need to know." Crit followed. Ploy stayed in the doorway, clutching the elevator frame like a lifeline. The hallway stretched impossibly long, longer than the outside of the building allowed. The walls had names scratched into them, carved with nails or broken glass. Dozens of them, one repeated over and over again. Mean, 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 mean. Some scratched backward, some upside down, some with blood still dried between the letters. Then they reached the end. Crit raised his hand toward the bolted door. It had no handle, only a small viewing slit, covered by what looked like mirror glass. He leaned forward, and in that glass, he didn't see his own face. He saw Nam, mouth sewn shut, eyes wide of despair. She raised her hand slowly, touched the glass from the inside, and behind her, something moved in the dark. A shape, feminine, rotted, weeping. The girl in the gown. "Go!" Crit screamed. He turned. The hallway had changed. Now it was lined with wheelchairs. IV poles hung with shredded tubes. Mirrors on the walls reflected nothing, or worse, things that weren't in the hall. Benz grabbed him. "The elevator!" They ran, but the elevator was closing. Ploy held the door as long as she could. It groaned, it resisted. Then it shut. She screamed, pounding on the buttons, but the elevator didn't move. Not up, not down. It was frozen on 14. Inside the hallway, the lights died. All Crit and Benz could hear was breathing, not theirs, from somewhere behind them, ragged, wet, and close. They backed up. The mirror in the steel door began to crack, lines spiderwebbing outward. Nam's eyes blinked once, twice, then turned completely black. And just as the mirror shattered, the elevator reopened. Ploy screamed for them to run. They ran, diving inside. The doors slammed shut. The lights returned. The floor number jumped. Lobby. They burst out of the elevator like they were escaping fire. No security guard in sight. No other residents. Only silence and the sound of the elevator rising again. Alone. That night, none of them spoke. They didn't check the footage. They didn't try to explain what they saw. But at exactly 3:14 a.m., Ploy's phone buzzed. It was a video, sent from Benz's phone. Even though he was asleep, even though his phone was powered off. The video lasted 14 seconds. It showed the three of them inside the elevator. Only in the mirror, there were four. Nam stood behind them, not moving, not blinking. And in the final frame, she smiled. Mouth sewn shut, thread stretched tight. And still, she smiled.
It began with the buzzing. May's phone lit up at 2:41 a.m., then again at 2:42, then 2:44. One by one, 3 videos arrived, each from Nam's number, each titled the same, 14. The first clip was only 5 seconds long. It showed the elevator, dimly lit, silent. Nam stood in the corner, pressed flat against the wall. Her face was pale, streaked with tears. Her lips trembled as she mouthed something, over and over again, but no sound came out. The floor number flickered violently, 14, 14, 14. Then, static and silence. The second clip was longer, 12 seconds. This time, the camera faced the mirror. Nam stood in the center now, holding the phone low. Her reflection looked wrong, delayed, smeared at the edges. She mouthed words again. This time her eyes were wide, desperate. Suddenly, she looked into the mirror, and the reflection behind her changed. It wasn't her anymore. It was the girl. Same gown, same stitched mouth, but now her eyes were full of rage. They burned. Nam turned, screamed silently. Then, darkness. The final clip was longer still, 17 seconds. This time, the footage was corrupted, full of distortions and glitching frames. The elevator walls pulsed like veins. The lights flickered, casting impossible shadows. Nam stood in the center, not moving. She wasn't crying anymore. Her face was calm, blank. The number above her glitched furiously. 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14. Her mouth moved slowly. 3 words, and then again, and again. Benz paused the frame, zoomed in, read her lips. Don't look in, don't look in, don't look in. The video ended with a deafening static screech, the kind of sound that doesn't come from a phone, the kind of sound that scrapes something inside you. They sat in silence, huddled in the dark. No one slept that night. The next morning, all 3 of their phones were dead. The batteries weren't drained, the screens were black, and when plugged in, nothing happened. As if something had passed through them and shorted everything out. Crit said nothing for hours. When he finally spoke, he didn't look at anyone. I saw something in the mirror last night, after we got back. Who? Ploy asked. Nam? He shook his head. No, it wasn't her. It was me, but not me. May sat stiff. Explain. Crit's voice was cold. My reflection blinked twice when I didn't, then smiled. He looked up, and my mouth, it was sewn shut. That day they tried to go to class, tried to pretend nothing had changed, but something had. The air around them felt heavy, static-filled. They began noticing things they hadn't before. Glances from reflective surfaces, shadows that didn't match their shapes. And then came the mirrors. At a cafe near campus, Ploy went to wash her hands. As she leaned over the sink, she looked up at the mirror. It was her face, but the mouth wasn't right. A faint black line curled across her lips, as if thread had been drawn over them. She blinked. The line remained. She reached up to touch her face, and her fingers came away sticky, red. She looked down.
A single strand of coarse black thread lay in the sink, soaked in blood. Then, when she looked up again, the mirror was clean. Her face was normal. She stumbled out of the restroom and never spoke of it again. That night, the three of them received another file, but this time it wasn't from Nam's number. It came through AirDrop. No name, no preview, just a file named mirrorsequence.mp4. They opened it together. It showed Nam, not in the elevator this time, but in what looked like a hospital corridor, flickering lights above, the walls peeling, her face pale, lost. She walked forward slowly. To her right, a series of mirrors hung at uneven angles. Each one showed her in different stages of decay. One showed her mouth gone, another her eyes hollowed out, another her body drenched in water like she had drowned. At the end of the hall, a final mirror stood cracked. Nam approached it, but in the reflection, it wasn't Nam. It was the girl. She stood still, and then suddenly raised both hands, slamming them against the glass. The screen went black, but the sound kept playing. A heartbeat, then another, then whispering. May turned white. "That voice, that's not Ty." The whisper was subtle, layered, wrong. They uploaded it to a speech-to-text tool. The result made no sense, fragmented syllables, but one word repeated over and over again. Mean, 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 mean. Crit closed the laptop. "I'm going back." "No," May said instantly. "She's trapped in there. She's gone, Crit. I saw her. We all saw her." Benz, silent for most of the day, finally spoke. "What if we're not just watching it anymore? What if it's watching us?" That night, Ploy looked into her phone screen and saw the elevator again. She hadn't opened the app, hadn't clicked any video, but it was there. Live footage, streaming, and in the center, Nam, standing in the elevator, mouth open in a silent scream. And slowly, her head turned, her eyes locked on the screen, as if she could see through it. The camera tilted, and the floor number glowed, 14, 14, 14. When Ploy dropped the phone, the screen cracked, the stream ended. But the app showed one final comment, posted moments before the feed vanished. "She's not alone anymore." The next day, May disappeared. No message, no phone call, no trace. Only one thing remained, a note on her dorm wall, scrawled in jagged handwriting, like it had been done in haste or fear. "Do not reflect. Do not respond. Do not repost." Crit, Benz, and Ploy stared at it in silence. Something was changing. This wasn't just a curse, it was a spread, and it wasn't waiting to be watched anymore. It was coming for the ones who had seen. Crit checked his phone again that night. No new videos, but his screensaver had changed. A still image, one he didn't take. A close-up of the elevator mirror. In the reflection, 5 figures, not 3, and each had their mouths sewn shut. Some urban legends are just stories, but this one was different, because it could see you back. In the days after May disappeared, students around the campus began whispering. At first, it was small, quiet, the kind of fear that lives between thoughts, behind closed doors. Then it spread, just like the video. It always began the same way. A student alone in an elevator, the floor numbers rising normally until the screen glitched. They'd feel it before they saw it, a pressure like breath on the back of the neck. Then the reflection would shift. Not suddenly, not violently, just enough to be wrong. eyes blinking out of sync, a second shadow behind them, a stitched mouth smiling softly behind the glass. By the time they turned around, nothing. Just silence, just themselves. And yet they'd leave trembling, shaking, worse than if they had seen a ghost, because something about it lingered. Ploy heard about it from a girl in her psychology class. "You've seen it too?" the girl asked. Her voice trembled. "The mirror thing?" Ploy didn't answer. She didn't have to. The girl leaned in. "My cousin works at that building. She said someone tried to break the mirror inside the elevator." "What happened?" The girl looked pale. "They said he was trying to release something." Word spread of a new TikTok trend. People filming themselves in front of mirrors, not to check their looks, but to see if they were still alone. They called it the reflection game. Rules were simple. Stand in front of any mirror, alone. Hold your camera still for 14 seconds. Don't speak. Don't blink too much. Review the footage immediately. If anything moves that you didn't do, you lose. But it wasn't just a game anymore, because people who lost began reporting strange things, seeing themselves walking past windows while they were still inside, reflections turning away on their own, dreaming of elevators they'd never entered, always stuck between floors, always flooded in pale blue light. And more disturbingly, several students received texts they never sent, selfies they never took, videos recorded at 3:14 a.m. showing them asleep, with someone standing in the corner behind them. Crit wanted to stop, wanted to erase everything, but he couldn't, not anymore, because he had begun to dream of mirrors. Not just any mirror, the elevator. Every night he would wake to the same dream. He stood inside it alone. The mirror was cracked. The floor number blinked 14. And behind him, always just out of view, was Nam, or what was left of her. In one dream, she was soaking wet. In another, her eyes had been gouged out. In another, she turned around and her face was his. Crit would wake screaming. Ploy and Benz could only watch him fall apart. They stopped using mirrors, covered the ones in their dorm, turned their phones face down, avoided elevators entirely. But it wasn't enough, because now the reflections were finding them. At a roadside noodle stand, Benz glanced at the surface of his soup and saw something staring back. Not the distorted ripple of his face, but two black eyes floating inches below the broth's surface. When he blinked, the face didn't vanish. It grinned. He threw the bowl. It shattered. The vendor screamed. But all he could do was stare into the wet pavement, where the puddle reflected the sky. And in that sky hung the number 14. Ploy wasn't spared either. She FaceTimed her sister late one night. As they spoke, the screen flickered. Her sister froze mid-sentence. Behind her, a window. In that window, a reflection. Ploy leaned forward. In the reflection, she could see the room, her sister, and standing behind her, the girl. Mouth shown shut, hands at her side. The reflection raised its hand, tapped the window. Then the screen went black. Her sister didn't remember anything the next morning, but Ploy's phone had a new wallpaper. A still from the call. The girl's face pressed against glass. That night, Crit suggested something none of them wanted to hear. "We have to go back." "No," Benz whispered. "No, that's how they get you." "We are already marked. May's gone. Nam's gone. If we don't end this..." Ploy stared at him. "And how do you plan to end something that lives in mirrors?" Crit didn't answer, but he pulled something from his backpack. An old, burned CD. Label worn off, only 2 words written in faded pen. Mirror binding. He had found it in a university archive, a research thesis on pre-modern Thai folk rituals related to spiritual entrapment. Specifically, the belief that mirrors could trap pain, that grief, fear, trauma could be sealed inside a reflection if done during a moment of death or madness. A ritual of silence, of severing. The file described monks who used mirrors to hold the souls of plague victims during epidemics to prevent them from following the living. But if the mirror was cracked or moved or seen by too many people, the boundary would thin, the soul would escape and attach itself to those who looked too long. Benz's voice broke. "This is a digital mirror now. Everyone's seen it. The reflection is everywhere." Ploy whispered, "Then it's already loose." They made a decision. They would go back to the building, one last time, not to play the game, not to watch, but to find where it began, to find Mean. But just before they left, Ploy received a final message. No text, no sender, only a photo of the elevator. Empty. Floor number glowing, 14. And in the mirror, clear and centered, were the 3 of them.
It began with a whisper, not from a person, from the mirror. Ploy didn't remember falling asleep. She only remembered waking up to darkness. The dorm room was quiet, eerily still. Crit was out. Benz had passed out on the floor, his laptop still glowing. Tick-tock flickered across the screen, sound muted. But something had pulled her from sleep. Something soft, wet, breathing. She turned her head slowly. The mirror above her desk was uncovered. That was strange. She remembered draping it in a dark cloth the night before, but now it was bare, reflecting only her bed and the space behind her. She sat up, and then she heard it again. A whisper, not a word, just a thread of breath dragging across the surface of glass. Ploy stood, heart pounding, approached the mirror. Nothing there, only her own reflection. But something about it was off, too slow, too pale. Her reflection didn't blink when she did, didn't move when she moved. And then it smiled. Not her smile, not a smile of joy. A slit, black and crooked, stretched across her reflection's face, as if the skin had been cut, pulled, and sewn back too tightly. Thread crisscrossed over her lips in thick black lines, tied at the corners like knots of silence. The reflection raised its hand. So did she. But hers trembled. The reflection's did not. Then slowly, terribly, it began to unpick the stitches from its own mouth, thread by thread, tooth by tooth, blood pooling where the knots once held, and as it pulled the final stitch free, the reflection mouthed something,
4 words. Clear, slow, final. Now you speak too. Ploy screamed and smashed the mirror with her fist. Glass exploded across the room. Benz bolted upright, shouting. Blood dripped down Ploy's hand, but she didn't feel it. She was staring at her own lips. They hurt. She ran to the bathroom, flicked on the light. Her mouth was torn. Not deeply, but jagged, uneven scratches ran across her lips. Thin strands of black thread were stuck in the corner of her mouth. She reached in with shaking fingers and pulled one out. Long, coarse, and wet. She vomited in the sink. Crit returned an hour later, found them huddled on the floor, lights on, all mirror shattered. Benz was shaking. Ploy wouldn't speak. She said the mirror talked to her, but not in words, in need. Crit said nothing. He looked down at Ploy's bloodied hands, the streaks of glass on the floor, the cracked iPhone camera reflecting a distorted view of the ceiling. And then he noticed something. In the phone's reflection, there were 4 people in the room, but only 3 were physically there. They destroyed every reflective surface they could find. Bathroom mirror, phone screens, laptop covers, polished furniture, even the glass in framed photos. But it didn't matter, because the reflections didn't need the glass anymore. They were inside them now. Ben started to sleep with sunglasses on. "You don't want to see my own eyes," he muttered. He'd begun to speak in his sleep too, low, guttural sounds, repeating something that sounded like chanting. One night, Crit recorded it. When he played it back, it wasn't Thai. It wasn't any known language. But a few words stood out, spoken clearly, repeated twice. Seal mouth. Watch mirror. 14 comes. Crit returned to the university archives. The mirror-binding thesis had one more section, one he hadn't read before. It spoke of a ritual used in infectious wards during outbreaks no one wanted to name. Back then, before the hospitals had names, before the ministries intervened, when a patient was considered too far gone, not just physically, but spiritually, the nurses were instructed to silence the soul. Not kill, not sedate, but to bind. They would sew the mouth shut, not as punishment, but as containment. The belief was simple. If the mouth cannot open, the scream cannot escape. If the scream cannot escape, the soul remains sealed. It wasn't just a metaphor, it was a spiritual protocol. The final passage read, "Once sewn, the mirror must remain whole. The soul remains tethered. But if the mirror breaks or is watched by too many eyes, the seal frays, and the scream must find a new mouth." That night, Crit had a vision. Not a dream, a vision. He stood in the hallway again, the sealed floor, the number glowing 14. And behind the door, he could hear them. Dozens of voices, crying, screaming, some whispering prayers, others laughing, wet and wrong. Then a hand slammed against the window. It wasn't Nam, it wasn't Mean. It was someone else. A girl, maybe younger, maybe still alive. Her mouth wasn't shut, but her eyes were covered in thick gauze. She mouthed one thing, over and over. "She sees through us." Crit woke, gasping. The mirror above his bed, one he had forgotten to cover, had cracked. Not shattered, just one perfect crack, right down the center. And in that crack, he saw his reflection. But the mouth was not his. It was Ploy's, shut, bleeding. And in his own reflection's hand was a needle. He packed his things at dawn. They had to end this. They had to return to the building, to the sealed floor, to Mean. But before they left, Benz collapsed in the hallway of the dorm, blood dripping from his nose, eyes wide open, frozen. When Crit knelt down, Benz grabbed him suddenly, strength unnatural, and hissed something into his ear. Not a scream, not a name, just one word. Unsewn. Then he passed out. At the hospital, the doctors were confused. No drugs in his system, no head trauma. But they found something unusual. 6 puncture marks along his gums, as if thread had once passed through them and been ripped out. As Crit and Ploy sat in the waiting room, silent and trembling, the hallway TV played quietly in the background. A reporter mentioned an incident, a viral TikTok challenge gone wrong. A girl found in an elevator unconscious, her lips covered in blood. The screen flashed a blurry photo. Ploy stared at it, then stood. No. What? That's our building. That's Suksawat Tower. The news anchor continued. She was found on floor 14, which doesn't officially exist. Officials say the elevator glitched. They're calling it a prank. Ploy shook her head. It's not a prank. She turned to Crit. It's a ritual, and it's spreading. They both looked at Benz lying behind the glass. But in the reflection of that hospital window, Benz wasn't lying still. He was sitting upright and smiling, his mouth sewn shut and his eyes weeping black. There are buildings that wear new paint like a lie. Polished tile, marble lobbies, elevators with stainless steel doors, all dressed to forget what they once were. But beneath the surface, history remains, and sometimes it waits. Crit had stopped trusting the internet. Too much noise, too many reposts, copies, deepfakes, corrupted edits of Nam's video. Some turned into horror meme filters, others buried in trend compilations. He wasn't looking for horror, he was looking for truth. And truth didn't live online anymore. It lived in paper, in old maps, in forgotten ledgers written by people who had tried to cover it all up. So he returned to the university's architecture archive, back to the records section no one used, back to the dusty blueprints that still reeked faintly of mold. He requested site plans from the 1980s, under the name Suksawat Rehabilitation Center. The staff member blinked. That's not a condo. Crit nodded. It was a hospital. The files were sparse. Much had been redacted or lost during renovation. But not everything. He found 2 blueprint overlays, one from 1983 and one from 1998. The original showed a 10-floor structure, standard ward design, nurses' stations at either end, single elevators, one stairwell. But a handwritten note scrawled in the margin caught his attention. Add extension by year's end, quarantine unit, temporary, no record. Below it, level X14. Crit's blood ran cold. There was a 14th floor, but it had no number, no access from stairs, no listing on the public plan. It had been sealed. He dug deeper. Medical reports, death certificates, patient logs under a name that didn't exist. But patterns emerged. Multiple children died within weeks of each other. Causes of death were labeled vaguely, like respiratory event, neurological shock, non-contagious collapse. Each one tagged with a single letter in the margin, M. Dozens of them. Some crossed out, some rewritten. And one name repeated, Mean, Mean, Mean K, age 14. Crit's hands trembled as he turned the final page. It wasn't a medical chart. It was a disciplinary report, filed by a nurse, name blacked out. The report read, Patient M was heard screaming through the floorboards of the sealed unit. Binding ritual incomplete. Mirror used as emergency measure. Mouth sewn shut, not by staff protocol, but by religious intervention. She did not die peacefully. Floor X14 locked. Elevator bypass reprogrammed. Crit scanned the document. At the bottom, stamped in red ink, Do not reflect. Do not reveal. Silence is containment. He drove straight to the Suksawat tower. No plan, no backup. Just the growing sense that if he didn't go now, he might never have the chance again. He didn't tell Ploy, didn't wake Benz. The building loomed in the morning haze, silent, unaware. The security guard didn't even glance at him. As Crit stepped into the elevator, the door hissed shut behind him with a finality that felt like fate. He didn't press a button, he just waited. The floor display blinked. Then, after 13, it flickered. But this time, it didn't glitch. The elevator stopped. Ding! And the doors slid open. It was the same corridor from his dreams. Dim blue lights, peeling green paint, water stains on the ceiling, the unmistakable smell of antiseptic and rot. The hallway buzzed with static electricity, like a television screen left on with no signal. Old gurneys lined the walls, rusted to the frame. Every door was shut, except one, room 1414. He stepped inside. The room was small, cramped, cold. A steel-framed bed sat under a dangling light bulb which flickered gently like it remembered violence. On the wall across from the bed was a mirror, cracked, but not broken. Carved into its surface, barely visible through grime, were tally marks, hundreds. And beside them, scratched over and over, Mean, Mean, Mean K, age 14. Crit's hands trembled as he turned the final page. It wasn't a medical chart. It was a disciplinary report, filed by a nurse, name blacked out. The report read, Patient M was heard screaming through the floorboards of the sealed unit. Binding ritual incomplete. Mirror used as emergency measure. Mouth sewn shut, not by staff protocol, but by religious intervention. She did not die peacefully. Floor X14 locked. Elevator bypass reprogrammed. Crit scanned the document. At the bottom, stamped in red ink, Do not reflect. Do not reveal. Silence is containment. He drove straight to the Suksawat tower. No plan, no backup. Just the growing sense that if he didn't go now, he might never have the chance again. He didn't tell Ploy, didn't wake Benz. The building remained quiet, peaceful, polished. No one questioned the missing floor. No one asked about the sealed room. But deep in the archives, the blueprints began to glitch. Files corrupted, pages missing. And on one folder, written in ink that wasn't there before, was a new label. Hospital Blue, active. The building didn't notice he was gone, but the mirror did. Crit never came back. His phone stopped pinging location. His last message to Ploy was a voice note, just static and a low scraping sound, like something dragged slowly across metal. When she tried to replay it, it was gone, deleted, replaced with a corrupted thumbnail, a still image of the elevator. Empty. But the mirror showed him, Crete frozen in reflection, mouth wide open, eyes rolled back, as if he'd screamed once and never again. Ploy didn't tell anyone. There was no point. Everyone who got too close to the truth vanished, bled out, or went silent. It was like the curse didn't just want witnesses, it wanted participants, and it was her turn. She returned to the building at night, alone. Not with bravery, but with resolve. Because whatever Crete saw, wherever he went, she had to find him, or finish what he started. Suksawat Tower felt colder this time, as if something beneath its surface had grown stronger, bolder. The elevator waited, humming softly, like a predator purring. She stepped inside. No button press. The elevator already knew where to go. It began to rise. Ding! The doors opened. She expected rot, decay, but the hallway was clean, freshly painted, white lights buzzing faintly overhead. Framed paintings hung neatly along the walls, all of them medical portraits. Nurses, surgeons, black and white, eyes blurred. The corridor was silent, but not dead. The kind of silence that breathes beneath your skin, that watches you walk. She stepped forward. Room 1414 was at the end again, but this time the door was open. Inside, the bed was neatly made, the mirror wiped clean, the air frigid and sharp. And in the corner, sitting quietly on a stool, was Mean. Not her ghost, not her reflection. Her. Young, 14, wearing the same hospital gown, now faded to gray-blue. Her mouth still sewn shut, but her eyes were wide, alive. Tears slid silently down her cheeks. Ploy stepped forward. "I see you," she whispered. Mean didn't move, but her breathing grew fast, panicked. She pointed, not at Ploy, at the mirror. Ploy turned. The mirror no longer showed her. It showed the elevator, but this time from above, looking down. Inside it, Benz, standing, unmoving, his mouth half-stitched, his hands twitching. Then the lights flickered, the floor counter glitched, 14, 14, 14. And then the elevator sank. The numbers began to count down. 13, 12, 11, 10. But the elevator wasn't descending. It was being pulled, dragged. And then it stopped at a floor that didn't exist. 0. Ploy turned back to Mean. The girl stood, trembling. She reached into her gown pocket and pulled out something small, a rusted elevator key, labeled Service Override. She held it out. Her stitched mouth trembled, and for a second, just one, Ploy thought Mean might speak. But then, something behind her moved. The mirror cracked. A long, jagged line stretched from top to bottom. Hands began pressing from the other side, not just Mean's, but dozens. Faces, mouths sewn, eyes pleading. One by one they emerged, not through the mirror, but from the walls. Reflections turned real. They dragged themselves along the ceiling, crawled like shadows, twisted, upside down. A nurse with no mouth, a boy missing his hands, a woman with her face turned inside out, sewn around the jaw like an inverted scream. Ploy grabbed the key and ran. Down the hall, into the elevator. She jammed the override into the keyhole. The panel glowed. A new set of buttons emerged. Floors -1 through -14. She pressed -14. The elevator groaned, then began to descend. It didn't feel like falling. It felt like sinking, drowning. The lights flickered blue. The air grew heavy, liquid, wrong. As it passed each negative floor, the elevator displayed a name. -1, storage. -4, archive. -8, morgue. -11, unregistered. -14, holding. Then, ding! The doors opened. A cold rush of air met her face. Not wind, but absence, as if this place had never truly had air at all. The hallway here was different. No paint, no lights. Just concrete walls stained with black handprints. Chains bolted to the floor. Scratches etched into every surface. Numbers repeated in jagged patterns. 14, 14, 14. Mean, mean, mean. Let her scream. In the center of the floor was an elevator. Smaller, older, rusting, forgotten. The doors were cracked open. Inside stood Benz, eyes wide, mouth half-stitched, hands twitching as he tried to hold the final thread in place. But something was pulling it loose. Ploy rushed forward. He looked at her, tears in his eyes. His mouth trembled. The thread snapped. He whispered, "They're not trapped anymore." And then his jaw unhinged, and he screamed. The hallway lit up. Mirrors flashed across every wall. Screens, phones, chrome, steel, broken glass, pools of water. All reflecting Mean and Crit and Mai and Nam and dozens of others. All reflections now. No longer trapped. Released. Ploy ran to the elevator, hit every button. The doors closed. The screen blinked. Up. But it didn't move. Instead, the mirror lit up, and in it she saw herself, alone, sitting on the floor, mouth sewn shut. A voice echoed, "The floor is sealed, but the reflection isn't." She screamed, but no sound came out. Her mouth was gone, just skin, smooth, silent. The mirror smiled, and the number blinked. 14, 14, 14. Forever. Before the elevator, there was the mirror. Before the mirror, there was the scream. And long before that, there was the ritual. The building no longer welcomed visitors. By now, the rumors had bled into the city like ink in water. An elevator that didn't stop at the floor you pressed. Security cameras showing people riding alone, even when someone else was clearly reflected. Construction workers quitting mid-renovation. Residents reporting sleepless nights, nosebleeds, hallucinations. One tenant said her mirror wouldn't stop whispering. Another claimed the elevator doors opened to a floor that smelled like children who never left. No one could prove anything, but no one stayed long. The landlord quietly stopped renewing leases. By the end of the month, the entire tower stood empty, but not silent, because silence is where ritual survives. Somewhere else in the city, an old man sat in a one-room apartment filled with incense smoke and faded newspaper clippings. His name was Ajahn Wiroj, once a spiritual advisor during Thailand's forgotten plagues, now half-blind and dying. He had spent the last 20 years warning people about reflections. No one listened, until Ploy found him. She came alone, eyes hollow, face pale, and around her wrist a single strand of black thread tied in a knot. He saw it immediately. "You've been marked." She nodded. He motioned for her to sit. "I thought it was superstition," she whispered. "But it's real. It's alive." Ajahn Wiroj didn't speak for a long time. Then, in a voice like torn paper, he said, "The mirror is not a window, it's a door, and the scream is the key." She told him everything. The videos, the disappearances, the elevator that took her to a place that shouldn't exist, the floor with no number, the girl with the sewn mouth. When she finished, he simply nodded. "I was there before it became a condo. It was a hospital for the ones they didn't want the world to see." "Mean?" He closed his eyes. "Yes, she was the last." Ajahn Wiroj explained the ritual. It was called Gan Puk Kratok, the mirror binding, a last resort rite used when spirits could not be appeased, when pain had fermented into something contagious, like rot, like fire, like madness. The belief was that mirrors could trap not just light, but memory. And if a soul died with a scream too large for the world to carry, the mirror would take it. But to keep it sealed, the ritual required 3 things: a scream silenced by thread, to sever sound from soul; a mirror unbroken, to imprison the last image; and a witness who would never speak, to carry the curse forward, silently. Ajahn Wiroj's voice trembled. He said, "They broke the chain. The mirror was recorded, shared, watched. And now..." He turned toward her. "Now, the scream is in you." Ploy shook her head. "I don't hear anything." The old man touched her wrist, the black thread. "No, but you dream." She nodded, slowly. "Yes, every night. The elevator, the mirrors, Krit, Benz, Nam, they all scream. But I..." She looked up. "I never make a sound." Ajahn Wiroj reached beneath the altar and retrieved something wrapped in silk. He opened it carefully. Inside was a mirror shard, dull and dark. Etched into it were ancient letters, scratched with bone. He placed it in her hand and said, "Do not look into it. Only hold it and listen." She obeyed. A moment passed. Then she heard it, deep inside her chest. Not in her ears, not in the room. A voice. Soft, childlike, terrified. "It's still open." That night, Ploy returned to the building one last time, armed with the shard, armed with knowledge, and a terrible choice. Because the ritual could not be undone, but it could be completed. There was only one way to stop the scream from spreading further. A new witness, a new silence. One person had to enter the elevator, alone, at 3:14 a.m. They had to carry the scream into the mirror, seal it, and never speak again. Not to the world, not to themselves, not even in thought. True silence, or the ritual would fail. Ploy entered at 3:13. She wore white. She held the mirror shard in her hand. The elevator greeted her with a soft ding. No floor selected. The number blinked. 14. The doors closed, and down she went. This time, the elevator didn't just move. It descended through memory. She passed floors that didn't exist, not in architecture, but in trauma. She saw herself as a child, watching her grandmother pray in front of a mirror. She saw Krit laughing in a lecture hall. Nam holding her phone and whispering, "This is real." May crying beneath a blanket of silence. Benz humming, unaware that the thread had already started to pull. She passed them all, until finally, the elevator stopped. No number, no ding, just a sound, a breath, a soft gasp, and a whisper, "Let me out." The doors opened. She stepped into the blue corridor. Mirrors on both sides, all unbroken. In each, Mean waited. Some were her age, some older, some rotted, some weeping. But all of them mouthed the same thing: "Don't scream." Ploy stood at the center, raised the mirror shard, and pressed it to the largest mirror on the wall. A sharp tone rang out, high and shrill. The mirrors rippled, reflections twisted, glass wept, and then silence. When the elevator returned to the lobby, it was empty, except for one thing: the mirror on the back wall. It had been wiped clean, and written on it in black thread: "Ritual complete, floor sealed, do not reflect." But by morning, the clip had been reposted again. An old TikTok resurfaced. The one where a girl stands behind the camera, mouth sewn shut. The elevator says 14, even though the building only has 13 floors. And in the reflection, she smiles. It didn't end in the building. It began there. They thought the scream had been sealed, that the thread had been tied, that silence had finally returned to the mirrors. But nothing on the internet ever really dies, especially not pain. The clip came back, reposted, repackaged, filtered. Then it went viral. Again. No one knew who posted it this time. It wasn't the original. It was darker, longer. The elevator scene stretched unnaturally, as if the footage had been recorded from a dream. The screen flickered with static every few seconds, as if something tried to escape the compression. It opened with a blank frame. Just elevator doors, closed. Floor counter blinking, 12. Then, ding! Doors opened. No one inside, only the mirror and the girl. Mean, standing behind the reflection. Still, mouth sewn, eyes filled with pleading. But now, something had changed. Her hand was raised, and she was pointing at the viewer. The comments exploded. "This edit is too real. Anyone else hear whispering, even with sound off? I paused at 0:14. Her mouth moves." Bro, this gave me chills. I looked into my phone camera right after, and I swear, I'm crying. I don't know why. It didn't take long for the challenges to return. Hashtag 14th floor challenge. Hashtag silent elevator. Videos flooded the algorithm. People trying to recreate the haunting. Some joking, some too curious. And then people began disappearing again. A live streamer from Chiang Mai vanished midstream. His audience watched in horror as his reflection turned to face him, and he didn't notice. The screen froze on his expression of confusion, then black. Later, someone posted the clip again, but reversed. In the reversed audio, a voice could be heard. Garbled, wet, not his. "She's not in the mirror anymore." In Bangkok, 3 friends filmed themselves in a condo elevator at 3:14 a.m. 2 were found hours later in the parking garage, faces blank, eyes bloodshot. The third was never found, but his phone kept uploading to his cloud. Dozens of videos, each from inside an elevator. No movement, just the sound of distant whispering and one blinking word on the floor counter. Mean. Data technicians at a local ISP began noticing anomalies. Massive spikes in upload traffic between 3:10 and 3:20 a.m. Always from random user devices. Always transferring short, corrupted .mp4 files to remote servers, locations untraceable. One analyst tried to trace the packet origin. His last message to his team was a screen grab of his own webcam. In it, his mouth was sewn shut. Behind him, the mirror, and a comment window open beside the image. The scream travels through code now. Cybersecurity forums lit up. Someone discovered that the metadata of the reposted videos contained malformed code, lines that shouldn't exist in standard formats. Nested inside, 14, loop, true, sealed, false, host, you. Some joked it was an ARG. Others started having nosebleeds while inspecting the files. One developer collapsed during a screen share. She'd been editing frame 14 of the clip when her screen glitched. Her last spoken words were, "Wait, why is it looking at me?" The scream had gone digital. Not through sound, through repetition, through attention. It lived in the act of watching, in the curiosity that drew people in. Every pause, every replay, every share, another needle, another thread pulled loose. Because now the mirror didn't need to reflect the viewer. It reflected the algorithm. The AI on content moderation platforms couldn't filter it. They tried. Flags were raised for disturbing content, mimicked facial gestures, abnormal blink patterns. But every time a post was taken down, 10 more went up. People claimed the video would autoplay even with autoplay turned off. Others said their devices recorded without permission. And some began to speak languages they had never learned. Not out loud. In sleep. Muttering phrases that didn't exist in Thai or English, but matched the phonetic symbols carved into Mean's old mirror. A team of digital exorcists, urban shamans who specialized in cleansing cursed content, attempted a collective mirror ritual online. Thousands joined the live stream. Viewers were told to cover their webcams with cloth, to chant an old binding prayer. At 3:14 a.m., The screen went black, then flickered, and from every uncovered webcam, watchers saw the same image, not their own face, but Mean, standing in an elevator, whispering a scream they could not hear but felt. One by one, the webcams shut off. The stream ended with the message, "You let her in." Digital artists tried to glitch the video into abstraction. Audio engineers tried to filter the frequency out of the scream. Archivists tried to bury it in deep web vaults. But the scream was no longer inside the file. It was inside the viewer. It didn't matter what device you used, or if you believed, only that you looked. Ploy's name was never mentioned again. She became an urban legend, the last girl to survive 14. Some said she was still trapped in the elevator, repeating the ritual over and over to hold the curse in place. Others claim she appears in TikTok comments just before your phone dies. A single emoji, a reminder to stay silent, to not scroll, to not look. But no one listens, because the scream is catchy. And every time someone watches, it stitches deeper into the soul of the internet, thread by thread, view by view, until one day, the reflection stares first.
We always call them the girl, the ghost, the reflection, the thing. But she had a name, and a name is the last thing that belongs to the soul. It began with a forgotten folder, hidden beneath layers of old bureaucracy and medical corruption. Someone, maybe a nurse, maybe a whistleblower, had encrypted a backup of restricted hospital records before the building became Suksawat Tower. It wasn't on the public server, not in the archive, but a data recovery technician investigating the strange network anomalies caused by the viral clip found it deep inside a corrupted drive labeled simply "do not mirror.zip." Inside were documents, photos, medical records, audio logs, and at the center of it all, patient M, full name Kanjana Mean Gultida, age 14, status deceased, time of death unknown, cause complications from experimental quarantine protocol. Mean wasn't just a patient, she was the first. The outbreak wasn't public, it was never declared. An illness swept through a small rural village near the Cambodian border. Children began hallucinating, collapsing, screaming in sleep, and waking up with unknown languages on their tongues. The ministry sent in containment units. The sick were taken to a private facility. No press, no autopsy, no records, and no return. Mean was different. She lasted longer. Her symptoms were strange. No fever, no infection markers, but consistent nightmares, and one repeating phrase recorded again and again in her sleep: "Don't sew me shut." She began to resist mirrors, would scream at her reflection, would try to claw at it. Staff covered all glass surfaces in her ward, but every time they turned away, she would find another, in water bowls, in stainless trays, even in the pupil of another patient's eye. She said they followed her, not people, reflections that used to be real. One nurse, known only by initials TJ, kept a secret log, audio files. In one, the nurse spoke quietly into a recorder. "Mean said she hears them inside the mirror. She says there are others, kids who never left. I told the doctors, they said it's trauma. But last night, I looked into the bathroom mirror and I saw her,
standing behind me, but Mean was asleep. 3 days later, Mean attacked another patient, clawed at her mouth, screamed that her scream had been stolen. They sedated her, tried restraints. Nothing worked. Then someone proposed the ritual. Unofficial, unlicensed, unholy. The staff called in a monk, young, unsure, desperate for money. He performed the mirror binding, under supervision, in secret. They sewed her mouth shut with ritual thread made from her own hair. They placed her in a sealed elevator, the only room without windows or corners. A mirror was bolted to the back wall, inscribed with a circle of salt, blood, and ash. They turned off the cameras, locked the doors, and waited. She was never seen again, but the elevator began to glitch. Every time it passed the 13th floor, lights would flicker. The counter would blink, 14, but there was no button for it. The room had been sealed between levels, not a floor, a limbo. Staff began seeing her in their own reflections, especially those who had participated in the sewing. Several resigned, others vanished. One took his own life, leaving a mirror covered in red cloth and a note. I heard her scream, in my dreams, in the glass, in my blood. When the hospital closed, no demolition crew would take the contract. So they built around it, changed the name, poured concrete over the sealed elevator, rebranded as a high-rise, and erased her name from every document. Everywhere but one. One nurse, TJ, smuggled out the final patient chart. It was scanned into the backup folder. At the bottom of the chart, handwritten in smudged black ink, name Mean Kultida, status not gone, reflection remains. If seen, do not reply. She was just a child. The world turned her into content. The internet turned her into a meme, an aesthetic, a haunted vibe. But Mean was not a monster. She was a child who screamed into a system that muted her, sewed her shut, refused to see her pain. And when no one listened, the scream echoed. Through time, through glass, through code. Until we watched it, and watched it again, and invited her in. They say if you say her name 3 times into a screen at 3:14 a.m., your camera will freeze. Not from the app, from her. And if you look closely, you'll see your own mouth moving, but not in your voice. Mean, mean, mean. And in the next frame, you'll be gone. Only the mirror will remain, with her still inside it, smiling, waiting, sewn shut until the next viewer lets her speak.
Some floors are built, others are buried. But floor 14 was never either. It was opened. The final 2 students, Ploy and Benz, had tried everything. They silenced their phones. They blocked every mirror. They deleted the clip, erased accounts, abandoned the dorm. But you can't delete what remembers you. Because once you see floor 14, it sees you back. Benz stopped sleeping. He said every time he closed his eyes, he dreamed of numbers. Not in order, not ascending, just 14, again and again, on doors, on walls, on skin, on Ploy's back. Once, he woke up sobbing, whispering, "There's no 15, it just loops." They knew what had to be done.
Return, one last time. Not to watch, not to run, but to face what they had released. To finish the ritual, or join it. Suksawat Tower looked almost peaceful now, abandoned, quiet. The air thick with that strange cold found only in buildings that remembered too much. The elevator greeted them with a single ding, as if it had been waiting. They entered, together. No buttons. The panel flickered, 13, 14, 14, 14. The descent began. When the doors opened, it wasn't a floor. It was a loop, a space that bent inward, corridors that circled, rooms that repeated, doors that opened into mirrors. Everything echoed, footsteps, breathing, whispers, and in every reflective surface, the same thing, them. Not as they were, but as the curse remembered them. In one mirror, Ploy was already sewn shut, smiling. In another, Benz was pacing inside the elevator endlessly, eyes wide, muttering 14 under his breath like a prayer. Every turn led them back to the same corridor, same cracked mirror, same stretcher, until finally they found the elevator again. But this one was old, rusting, doors slightly ajar. Inside, a girl, mean. She looked up at them, not pleading, not angry, just tired. Her mouth was no longer sewn, but she didn't speak. She held something in her lap, a spool of black thread and a needle. She held them out, offering. Ploy stepped forward. She knew what it meant. She took the needle, and with shaking hands, she began to sew her own mouth shut. 1 stitch, 2, 3. Tears fell freely down her face, but she did not scream, not once. Benz tried to stop her, but the elevator door slammed shut. He was alone. The floor number above him blinked, 14. The elevator dropped, faster, faster, spinning. Then it stopped. Doors opened, but the hallway was different. No blue light, just mirrors, dozens, hundreds, stretching into black. And in each one, he saw himself, but none of them moved like him. Some were frozen, some stared directly at him. One smiled and whispered inside his head, "We never left." He turned. There was no door behind him, no escape, only a mirror, and in it, mean, thread in hand. She opened her mouth, no stitches, only darkness. Then, silence. In the real world, the building sealed itself in, literally. The elevator stopped working. The floor plan glitched. Security footage looped. No one could access 14 because 14 was no longer a location. It was a condition, a curse, a closed circuit. Anyone who entered stayed or became part of the reflection. And in every mirror across the country, across the world, the same story unfolded. People reported seeing themselves frozen, paused, delayed by one blink. Then came the nightmares. Then came the silence. Ploy was never seen again. Benz was found days later, asleep in an elevator. When he woke, he couldn't speak. Doctors found no injury, but every night since, he's been writing the same number on his walls, 14, over and over and over. No one rides that elevator anymore. But sometimes, at 3:14 a.m., the doors open on their own, and inside, the lights are dim, the mirror is clean, and written in fog across the glass, still riding. 14 never ends. It always ends the same way. A final post, a final scream, a final reflection, and then another beginning. They called him Chai, a media student from Chulalongkorn University, same school as Ploy and Benz. He hadn't known them personally, only heard the rumors, the dorm room disappearances, the mirror injuries, the elevator that didn't exist. At first, he thought it was urban legend. Then he found the footage. Not the original TikTok, the broadcast. A cursed compilation stitched together from live stream clips, deleted accounts, corrupted phone backups, all centered around the Suksawat elevator. Someone or something had created it, and now it was spreading. No jump scares, no music, just silence, static, and 14 minutes of a single repeating frame. A mirror, a girl behind it, a number blinking. 14. Chai uploaded a video, just a short one. He sat in front of his camera, pale and tired. He didn't blink much. He didn't speak at first. Then, this isn't a trend. This isn't horror fiction. This is real. I saw her. I saw Mean. She looked straight through me. I haven't slept in 3 nights. I don't think I'm awake now. I'm posting this to warn you. His voice cracked. He looked into the lens. If you see her, don't look into her eyes. If you hear the elevator, don't step inside. And if you see floor 14... His mouth trembled. He leaned forward, and then he whispered, "It's already too late." The screen went black, then flickered. For exactly 0.7 seconds, a new frame appeared, a reflection. Chai sitting still. Behind him, not one girl, but 2. The comment section exploded. "Yo, who's the second girl?" Rewind to 2:46. You'll see her eyes open. Check the mirror glitch at 3:14. It loops. He wasn't alone. He was never alone. Check your reflection before scrolling. Within 48 hours, the video hit 8 million views. It was reposted with captions, clipped into YouTube shorts, synced to trending audio on TikTok, even turned into a filter. Elevator girl behind you. Some people used it for fun. Others didn't wake up after filming. But the real horror wasn't in the visuals. It was in the audio. A hidden layer, deep beneath the surface, inaudible to most humans, but detectable in spectrograms. A waveform shaped like a spiral, an infinite loop, and encoded in that spiral, reflection spreads faster when shared. The broadcast became a virus. Not in code, in curiosity. The more people watched to understand it, the more it understood them, their patterns, their habits, their faces. Soon people reported seeing the girl before they saw the video, in mirrors, in windows, in their dreams. Some tried to burn their devices, go analog, live offline. But the damage was already done, because the algorithm remembers. And somewhere, deep in the metadata, buried in the thumbnail previews and autoplay suggestions, was Mean, watching, waiting, thread in hand. A final post appeared on Chai's account. He didn't write it. No one knew who did. It was a still frame, low res, time-stamped at 03:14:00 a.m. It showed the inside of an elevator, mirror cracked, screen blinking, 14. And on the floor, a phone, still recording. A faint reflection showed Chai's mouth, sewn shut, but smiling. Under the image, "If you see this, you've already heard her." Content moderators tried to remove the video. It kept reappearing. Different usernames, different formats, different languages, but always the same warning: do not reflect. Now, some mirrors won't show your face unless you're alone. Some camera apps refuse to open between 3:10 and 3:20 a.m. Some phones unlock themselves, only to open the broadcast again. Even after deletion, even after factory reset, even after breaking the screen. Because the curse no longer lives in the building, or in the mirror, or even in Mean. It lives in the memory of the platform, in you. Every time you share a horror story, every time you forward a creepy video, every time you laugh at something that should never have been seen, you sew another stitch. And somewhere, in an elevator that no longer moves, two girls wait. Not for rescue, not for release, for witnesses. Because that's all it takes. One viewer, one scroll, one glance into the reflection at the wrong time, and the broadcast plays again. Some viruses infect the body, some infect the mind, but the most dangerous ones, they infect the mirror. His name was Anand. He worked for a mid-tier internet provider in Bangkok. No one special, just another late-night technician tasked with tracking down bandwidth leaks and corrupted data flows. It started with a routine alert: unusual spike in untagged traffic originating from a specific node near Suksawat. At 3:14 a.m., exactly, every night, for 7 nights straight. Each burst lasted 14 seconds. The data packet was encrypted, but what caught his eye was that every file had the same hash signature: 14.14.14.14.14.14.14.14. Perfect symmetry, like a chant in code. He opened one. A mistake. The file had no video, just a gray screen, a faint flicker of static in the corner. But when he ran it through the waveform analyzer, he found a sound. Not audible, not human, but shaped. A tight spiral with jagged vertical spikes. Anand zoomed in, each spike 14 milliseconds apart. And when he slowed the playback, he didn't hear a tone. He heard breathing, then a whisper. Just 2 syllables. Mean. His screen glitched. Only for a second. But in that second, his webcam light turned on. No apps were running. He stared at himself on the screen, except his reflection blinked first. Anand slammed the laptop shut, tried to laugh it off, but the reflection stayed with him. That night, every screen in his apartment glitched. Even the microwave display flashed 14 over and over again. The next morning, his face was different. Nothing big, just a slight delay in the mirror, just a second of blankness when he blinked. Then came the static. Every video call, every reflection. His face would pixelate at the mouth until one day it disappeared entirely. Just smooth skin and a timestamp in the corner. 03-14-00. Anand turned to the only people who might believe him, a private Discord for cybersecurity engineers. They had a name for what he was experiencing. Reflection protocol. Not a bug, not malware. A ritual wrapped in data. The theory was this. The original mirror-binding ritual had 3 parts. A soul in torment, a mirror to hold the scream, a silent witness. But when the screen leaked online, it needed new rules. So it adapted, rewrote itself, became code. Now the protocol was digital, triggered not by chance, but by interactions. Clicking, watching, mirroring. A new triad. Playback, compression, reflection. And the final step? Possession through resolution. Files containing the scream are always low quality, blurry, pixelated, as if degrading itself makes it stronger, makes it easier to slip past the eye. But when you pause it, frame 14, timestamp 314, and look close enough, the mirror appears. Always. In some form. On screen, behind you, in your own webcam preview, and in the mirror, her. Mean. Thread still dangling from her lips. Sometimes smiling, sometimes bleeding, sometimes pointing directly at you. The engineers tried to isolate the pattern. They failed. One by one, their devices froze at 3:14 a.m., their logs filled with corrupted loops, their backups replaced with mirror images of their own faces silently screaming. Some stopped logging in entirely. Some changed their names, deleted their accounts. One burned every screen in his house and carved a message into the wall. The mirrors are no longer glass. They are pixels, and pixels reflect too. Anand kept digging, obsessive now. He mapped the spike intervals, cross-referenced ISP nodes, overlaid them on a city grid, and what he saw chilled him. A spiral, a spreading ring, expanding from Suksawat Tower in 14-day intervals. Every new city block the screen touched, the signal grew stronger. Anand marked the center. 14 degrees north, 100 degrees east, the original sealed floor. He ran one last packet capture. This time, the file came back alive. It opened itself, played without prompt. A video, just 4 seconds long. A phone recording from inside an elevator. The mirror showed Anand, not from the past, from now, from behind. And in that mirror, 2 girls. The next morning, Anand was gone, his apartment empty, his devices wiped. Only one thing remained, his bathroom mirror shattered from the inside. On the wall, scrawled in blood, "The protocol is perfect. It only needs one more witness, you." And so it continues. Not by curse, not by ghost, by structure. Reflection protocol is a logic trap. Once you see it, it begins rewriting how you see everything else. Your face, your phone, your silence. Each becomes a mirror, and in each, she waits. Every building has a foundation. But not all foundations begin at the bottom. Some begin beneath, where silence has depth, where mirrors are doors, and where the scream was never contained, only buried. The building had long been sealed, power cut, residents evicted, elevators chained shut. But someone always finds a way in. Tonight, it was a boy named Fat, 17, curious, a TikTok creator with 28K followers and a thirst for viral mystery. He'd heard the rumors, the cursed clip, the glitching elevator, the girl in the mirror with her mouth sewn shut. He thought it was all fake, until the comments started following him. Not from real accounts, from deleted ones, from numbers that didn't exist. Ride the elevator at 3:14. Take it to floor 0. She's waiting for you. He thought it was part of a marketing campaign. He brought his phone, a flashlight, and a friend who refused to come inside. Just 10 minutes, Fat said, enough to get the shot. The lobby was dead, cold, echoing. The glass doors opened without power. The elevators hummed softly, as if they'd never stopped. Fat stepped inside, lifted his phone, hit record. No buttons lit up, just a blinking panel. Then, ding! The doors closed, and the panel flashed, going down. It didn't stop at B1 or B2. It kept descending. The floor display flickered, -3, -7, -11, -13, and then -0. The number blinked, paused, then disappeared entirely. The doors opened, and the elevator was no longer in a building. It was in a room. Circular, silent, walls covered in mirrors. Every angle, every direction, nothing but infinite versions of himself, distorted, delayed, watching. In the center of the room stood a single black chair, facing away. Someone sat in it. Hair, long, wet, still. Fat stepped out. The air felt thick, wet, like walking through breath. He circled the chair and froze. It wasn't mean. It was himself. Older, mouth sewn shut, eyes black and hollow. The reflections in the mirrors didn't match his movements. Some smiled, some wept, some were gone completely, only empty chairs in empty glass. And on the floor, an old phone, playing the original video, on loop. Fat stepped back, turned to leave, but the elevator was gone. The mirrors closed in, the chair empty now, but his reflection still sitting in it. One mirror began to play a recording. It was his voice from earlier. Just 10 minutes, enough to get the shot. Then another. "What's up, guys? Today I'm exploring the infamous 14th floor." Then another. "Check your reflection before scrolling." Then silence. And then a whisper. Not from a mirror, not from the room, from inside his phone. Tag someone else, or stay. He screamed, but the scream didn't echo. It was absorbed by the room, by the mirrors, by the floor. Outside, his friend waited, but Fat never returned. Only his phone did, buzzing in the corner of the elevator, airdropping the video over and over to every device nearby. Even if Bluetooth was off, even if no one accepted, the clip still appeared. That's how it spreads now. Not by link, not by repost, by proximity. You don't even have to watch. You just have to be near someone who did. Some say Floor Zero was never built. It's a memory, a ritual space made real by belief, repetition, and silence. The moment you doubt it, it fades. The moment you feel it, it pulls you in. And if you're still watching the clip, if you followed this story all the way here, you've already stepped inside. Because the mirror doesn't need to reflect your body, only your attention. And now, before this ends, look into the nearest screen. Pause. Watch your own reflection. If it moves before you do, if it blinks too late, if it tilts its head ever so slightly, don't speak, don't scream, and whatever you do, don't ride the elevator. The number is still blinking. 14, 14, 14, 14, 14. Floor 0 reached. Loop begins again.